And the First Minister, Humza Yousaf, has rejected calls for SNP members to debate the Scottish Government's partnership agreement with the Scottish Greens. Mr Yousaf told the BBC he'd been elected leader of the SNP, having pledged unequivocal support for the deal. His leadership rival, Kate Forbes, told this programme that members should be allowed to check in on the deal. Well, our political correspondent, David Wallace-Lockhart, joins us now. Morning, David. Some in the party don't agree with the Bute House agreement with the Greens. What is their problem with it?
So, Laura, the Bute House agreement is the document that underpins the relationship between the SNP and the Greens in government. It was signed back in 2021 and it was backed overwhelmingly by the memberships of both those parties. But not everyone in the SNP, as you say, supports all the policies within it. And a couple of examples we could pick up on there. The agreement makes reference to highly protected marine areas. These would have restricted fishing in certain areas, but they've now been dropped. And it makes clear that both parties back the policy of wanting to change the law to make it easier for someone to change their gender. That's not been popular with everyone in the SNP, though it should be noted that's a long-standing SNP policy and something the Greens have championed for some time. It predates the agreement. Also, some in the SNP simply perhaps feel the Greens are too radical for government. They don't think they're pro-business enough, don't like their approach to the economy. So Fergus Ewing, for example, former Cabinet Secretary, who's now quite an SNP rebel in Holyrood these days, has labelled the Greens extremist. He wants SNP members to have another vote on the Bute House agreement. And now Kate Forbes has said that the policies within the agreement should be looked at with members and that there should be, in her words, a check-in to ensure that they're still happy.
So how likely is it that a vote at SNP conference on the agreement will happen?
Well, that's what some would like to see, a vote at SNP conference in October, but I think it looks quite unlikely. And that's because the SNP leadership likes this deal. It gives them a majority in Holyrood. The SNP without the Greens would be one MSP short. So having this deal in place means that they get their budgets through, they get the policies through with relative ease. Also, some at the top of the party feel it would look a bit like navel-gazing at the moment, start having debates about the deal with the Greens and whether SNP members want it tweaked at a time when, there's a cost of living crisis going on. But also, Humza Yousaf feels that the party membership in the SNP did recently have a say on this deal and that he has a personal mandate to keep it alive. And here's what he had to say to BBC Scotland News yesterday.
SNP members did have the opportunity to vote for it when that vote took place. It was a 95% vote for acceptance of the Bute House agreement. And of course it's been just over 130 days since members had the opportunity to decide to pick their party leader, and they chose me, and I stood in a very strong platform, unequivocal platform in fact, of continuing that partnership with the Greens.
So the First Minister says there will be no vote. How much of a problem is it for Humza Yousaf if this disquiet continues?
Well, something I should mention at this point in all of this is the Scottish Greens, and it's important to clarify that they're happy with the deal. They think it's working. They say they're proud of it. They had previously hinted during the SNP leadership contest that they may have left it had Kate Forbes won. I think they saw quite big political differences between themselves and her. When it comes to the First Minister here, I don't think this is the biggest problem he has to deal with at the moment. I don't think the deal with the Greens, the Bute House agreement, is something that dominates the thoughts day in, day out of most SNP members. But he now does have a couple of big voices in the party, including Kate Forbes, someone who in that recent leadership contest was backed by 48% of the members, calling for potential changes to the foundational document that the current administration, the current Scottish Government, is based on. And that's the sort of speaking out in the SNP that didn't really happen just a couple of years ago. Remember, this is a party previously famed for its discipline and everyone being publicly at least on the same page. So it's probably a bit of a headache for the First Minister. And the big question, I suppose, is do more MSPs or MPs start saying similar things to Fergus Ewing and Kate Forbes about this deal and calling for it to be looked at again?
David, thank you very much indeed.